You ever have that moment where you know something is about to explode, but you just can't walk away? That was me last Saturday at the Marina. I thought it was going to be a quiet afternoon by the water, maybe a little fishing, a little sun, but then I saw her, HOA Karen, and she wasn't alone. She had brought half the neighborhood with her, all shouting, all laughing, all thinking they had free reign over what's common property. The moment she stepped onto the dock, I felt it, that familiar surge of irritation. Karen had this way of acting like she owned everything. And trust me, she made sure everyone knew it. But this time, something inside me snapped. I'd been patient for months, dealing with her ridiculous complaints, her endless threats, her constant reminders that she was in charge of our shared spaces. And now, she was about to throw a full-blown party on a marina that I had every right to enjoy. I walked up to the gate and did something I never imagined I would do. I locked it. Just like that, click. The sound of the lock closing echoed in the sunny afternoon, and suddenly all chatter stopped. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Kids stopped running. And Karen, oh, you should have seen her face. At first, there was confusion, then outrage, then pure, unfiltered rage. She pointed, she yelled, she waved her arms like a conductor of chaos. "Common property!" she screamed, so loud that the seagulls scattered in every direction. I could feel everyone staring at me. Some of her guests were embarrassed. Some were furious. And Karen? Well, she just lost it completely. Her eyes were wide, her face red, and she was trying to rally everyone to pressure me into unlocking the gate. But I stood my ground. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. Every second that passed, she got louder, more frantic, more desperate. She didn't just want access. She wanted to make sure everyone knew I was the bad guy, the villain, the person who dared to challenge her authority. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a locked gate or a party at the marina. This was about power, control, ego, and I wasn't going to let her steamroll me, not this time. I took a deep breath, prepared myself for the verbal onslaught, and got ready to face the storm that was about to hit. Trust me, things only got worse from here. What happened next changed the entire dynamic of our neighborhood, and Karen would never see it coming. The moment the gate clicked shut, I thought the tension would be uncomfortable, but manageable. I was wrong. Karen's reaction was something I had never witnessed before. She stormed forward, her heels clicking against the marina dock like a drumbeat of impending chaos. Her voice, sharp, high-pitched, and dripping with fury, cut through the air. "How dare you lock the gate? This is common property," she screamed, pointing at me as though I had personally stolen the sun from the sky. Her guests looked around, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of the crossfire. A few whispered nervously among themselves, while others shot me apologetic glances, clearly embarrassed by the spectacle. Karen, however, was oblivious to everything but her own outrage. She waved her arms wildly, flailing like a storm trying to break free, demanding that I unlock the gate immediately. Every word she spat seemed louder and more unhinged than the last. I stayed calm, though my heart was racing. I knew reacting emotionally would only fuel the fire. Instead, I took a slow step back and let her energy crash against me. She tried intimidation. She tried guilt. She even attempted to rally her neighbors into pressuring me, but I could see the cracks forming. Some people were growing uncomfortable with her behavior. I noticed a few adults exchanging glances that clearly said, "Is she serious?" Meanwhile, a couple of kids looked bewildered, unsure why a simple marina outing had turned into a dramatic showdown. Then came the threats. Karen, never one to hold back, started listing rules, fines, and imaginary penalties, insisting she had the right to dictate who could enter the marina. "You're violating HOA regulations. You could face fines. You're being unreasonable." Her tirade went on, but every threat seemed to bounce off me. I had done my homework. I knew my rights. I wasn't intimidated. Her face was red, veins popping, hands trembling. Classic Karen meltdown territory. She tried to storm around the gate to open it herself, but I was ready. "You're not going anywhere," I said firmly. The silence that followed was deafening. Karen froze for a moment, shocked that someone had actually stood up to her. Then she screamed louder. Her voice echoed across the water, blending with the wind and waves, a mix of anger and disbelief. It was surreal, watching her unravel, seeing the meticulously polished persona crumble in front of everyone. Her guests were shifting uncomfortably, unsure if they should intervene or run. And me? I just stood there, calm, resolute, knowing that this confrontation was only the beginning. Trust me, this meltdown wasn't going to end quietly. Karen was about to take things to a whole new level, something I hadn't anticipated. By now, the marina had turned into a full-blown battlefield, but not in the way you might think. Karen's scream had drawn more attention than either of us expected. Neighbors from nearby docks started gathering, curious about the chaos unfolding. Some leaned on railings, whispering. Others recorded with their phones, clearly sensing a viral moment in the making. And there she was, Karen, center stage, trying to command attention as if she were conducting an orchestra of outrage. I noticed something interesting. Not everyone was on her side. A few longtime neighbors, who had quietly endured her antics over the years, exchanged knowing glances. One older gentleman shook his head, muttering under his breath about how Karen always thought she was in charge of everyone else's fun. Another neighbor, someone who had been on the receiving end of her complaints before, gave me a subtle nod of support. That was when it hit me. This wasn't just my fight. This was a tipping point for the entire neighborhood. Karen, of course, didn't see it that way. She was too consumed by her fury. "Common property! You're violating everyone's rights!" She screamed again, throwing her hands up. Her voice cracked under the strain, but she refused to back down. I could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. Some guests looked genuinely embarrassed. Others frustrated, but Karen wasn't stopping. She was on a mission to make me pay for daring to challenge her authority. I decided to take a subtle, strategic approach. I explained calmly to both her and the gathering neighbors that the marina was a shared space. Yes, but that parties of this size and with this level of chaos required prior notice. I reminded them of the rules in a neutral tone, letting facts speak louder than emotions. That momentary pause in her yelling gave a few people around her the chance to process the situation differently. I could see the shift in their expressions. Confusion, curiosity, doubt. Karen had assumed that everyone automatically agreed with her. But now, cracks were forming in her narrative. Then it happened. Karen tried to storm past me again, this time with one of her guests attempting to push the gate open. I stood firm, my hand on the lock. "No," I said calmly, meeting her eyes. That single word seemed to ignite her even more. She screamed, stomped, and waved her arms like a wild hurricane. But the support I was getting from others had grown. She was no longer just yelling at me. She was yelling at a neighborhood, slowly questioning her authority. It was intense, chaotic, and fascinating all at once. I realized this showdown wasn't just about a marina, gate, or a party anymore. It had become a story of control, ego, and community. And Karen, well, she was about to go further than I ever imagined. By this point, the marina had transformed from a peaceful afternoon into a full-blown spectacle. Karen's yelling had reached a fever pitch, every sentence a mix of rage, disbelief, and desperation. Her guests were now split. Some were clearly embarrassed, some frustrated, and a few I noticed, quietly backing me up with nods or side glances. The tide had shifted, and Karen was losing control. She tried every tactic she could think of. Accusations, threats of fines, even dramatic pleas to think of the community. But all of it fell flat. She had built her persona on intimidation, on the idea that no one would dare challenge her. And yet, here she was, flailing like a storm trapped in a glass bottle. I stayed calm, my voice steady, letting the facts speak louder than her fury. "Everyone has the right to enjoy the marina," I said, projecting my voice over the wind and water. "But parties this large, without notice or approval, are a violation of the rules, and it's not just about me. It's about fairness for everyone." My words seemed to cut through the chaos. A few neighbors murmured in agreement, while others nodded silently. Karen's face turned redder, veins popping in her forehead, as if the realization that not everyone was on her side physically pained her. Then came the final straw. One of her own guests, clearly frustrated by her tantrum, stepped forward and said, "Maybe you should calm down. This isn't just about you." It was like the room collectively exhaled. Karen froze, her mouth open, as if someone had thrown cold water on her meltdown. The power she thought she had, her control over the marina, her reputation, her authority, was slipping through her fingers in real time. At that moment, I made my move. I gestured toward the locked gate and calmly said, "The marina is open, but let's follow the rules. That's all anyone's asking." The tension hung in the air for a heartbeat, then slowly dissipated. Karen backed away, muttering under her breath, shoulders slumped, defeated, not by me personally, but by the undeniable reality that her theatrics had failed. The neighbors started to relax. Some even applauded quietly, relieved that the chaos was over. Karen, meanwhile, muttered one last frustrated, "Common property," before storming off, leaving her guests bewildered and her authority in tatters. It was over. I had stood my ground, defended the marina, and, unintentionally, exposed just how far her ego could go before it broke. Looking back, I realized it wasn't just about a locked gate or a ruined party. It was about standing up, setting boundaries, and letting a community see the truth behind the tantrums. And sometimes, that's more powerful than any argument, any complaint, or any scream. The marina was calm again, the water reflecting the late afternoon sun, and I knew that Karen's meltdown would be the talk of the neighborhood for weeks. If you enjoyed watching this crazy HOA meltdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable neighborhood stories, and drop a comment below telling us what you would have done if you were in my shoes.